Do we have a title? How we moved to Vancouver, Washington, tips and hacks, love it.
No, because that was before. That was more of the how-to versus...
What about our journey to Vancouver, Washington?
Okay. The origin story. Only on E.
Only on E. In this video, we're talking about our journey to Vancouver, how we got from where we were to where we are now, which is Vancouver, Washington. So if that's something you're interested in, stay tuned.
So if that's something you're interested in, stay tuned.
Hi there, welcome back to Living in the Pacific Northwest with Hal Byrd on this channel. I talk about life in Vancouver, I talk about real estate, what it's like to live here, and a lot about relocating. We have a real estate business. I am a licensed Washington broker and realtor here in Southwest Washington. My husband is a longtime investor, and sometimes he's gracious enough to join me on video and share his handsome face and insights. He's always behind the camera, so it's good to have you here.
I appreciate it. It's good to be here. But cool topic, right?
Yeah, great topic.
Can I start?
Sure.
You sure?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to kick it off this time. You guys are used to seeing my wife's beautiful smiling face, but this is a video we wanted to share because a lot of the traffic on this YouTube channel comes from people who are considering at some stage a move to the beautiful Pacific Northwest, Southwest Washington, Metro Portland, right?
And if you need help moving, relocating, buying, selling, and investing, then make sure to text me right now. You can text me at 360-818-4438.
Hey, can I try this? I was like, you guys do this.
Yeah.
It worked.
And I'll put the text right there for you.
There you go.
Okay,
so,
sorry.
No, it's all good. It's all good. So again, there's no shortage of how-to moves, right? All of the logistics, ways to pack and to ship and to transport, and those are all important, and we'll be highlighting those in future video. But we wanted to do something kind of more from the heart, right? Because there's a lot of decisions, there's a lot of emotions, there's a lot of factors and fears that go into moving, and a lot of people who are watching this aren't moving across town, they're moving from across state or maybe even across country, and you have some people across the world, right?
I have people who've contacted me from China and Japan, and my furthest domestic, you always laugh when I say domestic.
Just sound real gringo. Domestic. Yeehaw.
My furthest clients right now are in South Florida.
Okay, so it's a diagonal moving pretty much,
Yeah,
right?
pretty much the farthest point in the country from here.
Yeah. So again, this is a little bit more, what is the word, altruistic or intangible. This video is just
less like a list of 6 reasons or
right, less logistics, more just trying to connect with some of you who may be going through the same things we were at various stages of our move, all the way up to actually jumping in their cars and hitching up the trailers and making a long trip up the West Coast. Again, there's a ton of generic how-to information, but I think based on, and I'm always kind of looking over your shoulder, so based on a lot of the messages that you receive and respond to either through this YouTube channel, your Facebook page, or Instagram, a lot of people are kind of still early on, still trying to decide if a move, let alone this move, is the right move.
Yeah, or people who are 2+ years out.
Yes,
from
absolutely.
Moving.
Which was kind of us early on in the journey, right?
Yeah. It's kind of a blur for me of when we first started to think about it. Like, I can remember looking, but I don't remember like one catalyst being.
So let's just go back to the origin, right?
Okay.
So we came from, we live in beautiful Southwest Washington now. Just hit 3 years.
And so for all they say, go back to California.
You all get. How dare you?
You can be saved a little because, well, I wasn't born in California either, but you were really, I'm kind of from California, but you're not from California.
No.
So where did you start?
I'm born and raised not in West Philadelphia, Northwest Philadelphia for most of my days. So yeah, from the East Coast, spent a lot of years in down south in Georgia before coming out to SoCal.
Yeah.
So
how did we get started? So we wanted to get out of California because
well, that's what I wanted to go over, is just some of the again factors for us, because I think a lot of you guys watching are probably considering some, all, or a factor, right?
So this is more of story time than anything.
Story time and just origin, right? So, but I think it'll be helpful.
So we originally wanted to get out of California because of natural disasters and resources. What got us into prepping? I don't remember what the catalyst was, but we were like, yeah, it's not a good idea to live somewhere where there's not enough natural resources to support human life.
Yeah, I don't know how we initially kind of stumbled upon the topic of preparedness, but we did, and we started looking around, and like probably like a lot of you guys, like we had nothing together, right? So God forbid there was, where we lived, if there was a water shortage, because there's no source of water, native to Southern California. So our drinking water, if I'm not mistaken, was piped in from another state.
Yeah.
Kind of worrisome when you think about it, right? The place that's conducive to droughts.
Yeah.
So we started just looking around, and we're kind of shocked at how ill prepared we were.
From a logistics standpoint, from a personal preparedness, so like supplies that we had on hand, but then also just all of the different factors that went into our environment that we couldn't control. We can't control the fact that we lived in the desert in Temecula, California.
Tumbleweeds literally rolled down the street. Make sure you put the picture.
It was dry
and rattlesnakes. Remember that?
Yes, by the mailbox.
We might as well have been in the Wild West, man.
It kind of is the Wild West. And it was regularly above 100 degrees, which we just survived the Portland historic heat wave.
Yes, so we are the end of June, and we literally yesterday, and for the last 3 consecutive days, set new records every day in Portland and in Southwest Washington for the highest. The highest, I believe, was 116 degrees in Portland, which is technically a rainforest.
So yeah, we got into kind of the beginnings of preparedness. We were like, we want to be for ourselves in a situation where if there were any sort of natural disasters, droughts, anything, that we could not be in dire straits if something like that happens. So we wanted to have enough food on hand. We wanted to be able to at least grow some semblance of fruits and vegetables for ourselves. Not necessarily 100% self-sufficiency. I think that's pretty hard to get to in today's world.
Depends. Something to strive for.
Yeah.
But so where I'm at, I mean, I have a list you wouldn't believe of things I plan to get and we get as the budget allows and would like to get, but you do what you can do, right? And you prioritize.
Yeah, so that's what got us, that and a few other.
Yeah, I like to share them.
Okay.
So this might be a longer video. If you're an impatient person, skip to the end. But again, for a lot of you guys, this could be some stuff, and just reading comments, these are things people are thinking about.
Yeah, we're not.
Right. So for me, so again, you had a necessity standpoint, which was basic necessities, right? Water. I think we were watching the zombie movie at one point, and it was we were thinking kind of, this is outlandish a little bit, but if there was a zombie or some kind of disaster, there's a heck of a lot of people where we came from. So from a fulfillment standpoint,
I'm just thinking I don't know if we should. So it was natural disaster was a threat, war, famine, drought, that kind of thing. Whole shit.
Yeah. So
it's just
right.
Possibly conspiracy theory-ish, but we're whatever the scenario, you can never predict the future. Nobody could predict COVID.
Right. So again, so one of our factors was just bare necessities of life. For me, a big one was fulfillment, right? So fulfillment meaning I'm from the East Coast. I miss green, right? I miss seasons. SoCal is beautiful. It's year round. Everybody knows pretty much what to expect. But for me, I get a certain sense of fulfillment from seasons changing, from being able to have rain and snow and the cold of winter. And I know that took and is still taking some adjustment for you. And for me too, because I was there long enough where my body got desensitized or sensitized. I don't know.
And then, I mean, this spring, it was, I think one day it was 63 and it was so warm and I was wearing shorts.
That's right. I was like,
oh.
who is this girl? And then also just, less people, right? So again, some people, if you're watching this from New York City or Los Angeles, and you love it. I mean, there's a certain
appeal to it.
There's a certain heartbeat. There's a certain, like I said, I used to go to New York for that thrill when I lived in Philadelphia, so I get it. But again, just for us, where we're at in our journey at the time, we were looking for less people, maybe a slower way of life, not so much congestion and fast-paced lifestyle.
So when we got to that point, we looked at Texas, we looked at South Dakota, we looked at Tennessee,
so just
what's that area called where all the preppers live?
The Ozarks. So again, going back to another factor. So probably if you're anything like us, you're considering, where do I move, right? It's interesting reading a lot of your comments because people are considering all kinds of things. Like you just said, we were looking at some neighboring states. We were looking at some far away states. We were even looking internationally.
Tahoe. We were gonna live in
Tahoe was very appealing for some reasons. I remember we looked at South Dakota. We looked at a house in South Dakota on 124 acres. But my wife got scared away because you need to take a plane to the closest Walmart.
Well, ideally, I would prefer Target or Costco, but there were no Targets in Costco.
Okay.
The closest thing you could get, it was like an hour or 2 hours to get to Walmart.
It was far.
And so after we saw that, it was like, part of our search criteria is if we're gonna live rurally, it has to be within 30 minutes of a Walmart.
Right. Which I don't know. I guess access to resources and food and shopping is important, obviously.
Yeah.
But I guess the point we were just trying to make was if you're considering other places, obviously, we can relate because that's what that was us. Really, this took us, this journey, this decision, this research. It was a better part of a year, right? Yeah. So this wasn't any snap decision. We were looking, and my wife, as you guys, if anyone has reached out to Hal, she's a big time researcher. So she, there's nothing that she doesn't find pleasure in researching just about. So the point is we did a lot of research on various areas before we decided. And we still actually, before we moved up here, I'm sure we'll probably touch on this later, but we took a exploration trip, right? Before we decided to move here, we came up here actually to the Pacific Northwest to the Columbia River Gorge area.
Because we wanted to be rural. That was our biggest thing. We wanted to be away from people. Because in preparedness, if any of you guys are even remotely into preparedness, and I'm not saying we're like on the far end of the spectrum, doomsday preppers, we don't have an underground bunker yet.
We don't. I'm working on an under river bunker.
Oh, is that what it is?
That's right.
You gotta have some tight seals then.
Oh, I got tight seals.
But the biggest threat in a situation like that is going to be other people. So we wanted to get away from the population center. We wanted to get away from somewhere where you had tens of millions of people in Southern California. So we were looking in rural places.
And again, this isn't, I've said this in I think our last video, not trying to throw SoCal under the bus, right? Where I'm from in Philadelphia, you still have, if I'm not mistaken, 6 million people, right? You live in the city and surrounding areas.
That many?
Yeah.
That's like the whole state of Washington.
So when we were doing our search and we were looking at populations, we were like kind of pleasantly surprised to see that the entire state of Washington, this big, beautiful green state,
I think it's up to 7 million.
at the time had six some odd million people.
Something like that.
But yeah, you're right. So Philadelphia, Atlanta, where I spent some time at, Atlanta and surrounding areas is over 6 million people. So again, that was just something that attracted and appealed to us. But in watching, we're fascinated by zombie movies. Not fascinated, but we watch them. But one of the things that I'm really fascinated by is, like you said, when things break down, it's typically other people, human nature, like the way we devolve and kind of to base animal instincts. So again, we could do whole videos on our journey to things like that. But the long story short, less people was more appealing for us, more resources, the ability to be self-sufficient and kind of get to that point in life where we're as self-sufficient as possible.
So it was preparedness.
Mm-hmm.
Taxes was something we were looking at. So we were only looking at places that were very tax advantaged, which is why I mentioned like Texas, South Dakota.
What about Florida? Did you ever consider Florida? Don't. You have clients from Florida.
Okay, and they're moving for a reason.
Nah, just joking. But yeah, so taxes, obviously. Taxes, like expenses, that was a big deal to us, right?
Yeah.
We're not independently wealthy, so, trying to save money, coming from California, beautiful state.
You could move almost anywhere and save money from California.
Right, but the state income tax is as high as 13%, right? So that's on top of federal, that's on top of local and sales tax and everything else. So again, that was a big factor for us.
Yeah, and maybe not everyone has watched our tax video. It's not our most viewed video.
It isn't, but we do have a video. Maybe you could put it right here. Hey, look at me, I'm like a professional.
You're a YouTuber.
I'm a YouTuber. So again, great video about, and actually did a video about expenses here, kind of what to expect.
Right there.
Look at you. And why some of the richest people, literally some of the richest people in the world call Washington State home. And you have to ask yourself why, and you'll find out in this video.
Nothing goes that way.
Having fun.
So yeah, taxes was a big thing. So we looked at states that had a better tax situation than California. Rural, that we could find land.
Yes.
And that ultimately, that search, I guess we're gonna speed this up, huh?
No.
Okay.
I think so. Again, and maybe I'm self-involved, but I think some people will find a lot of value in hearing our whole thought process, because it could, again, if we were watching this 4 years ago and someone mentioned some of the things we're talking about now, it could be things that we had thought about independently.
Yeah, that's true. So we looked at all the states. We kind of decided on Washington State because it had no income tax, so that was a plus. It had better, more seasonality than Southern California. It
has for me, and I'm not an outdoorsman at all, but I like being outdoors. I like being able to find snow and rain and hikes and trails and cool roads to drive. And Washington State offers some of the best combinations of that as you'll find anywhere in the world. It's just a fact. So
yeah, there was a lot that we liked about it. So then we started looking. We looked at like Seattle suburbs. We were thinking, okay, if we live kind of outside of the city, where you could get a little bit of land, because we still wanted access to things. Like most of the clients who reach out to me, they're like, I don't want to be any more than 30 minutes out of the city or 45 minutes. It just depends on the person. And that's one of the beautiful things about Vancouver and Southwest Washington that I think is overlooked, especially as someone who came from California, because like when we lived in Rancho, there's like suburbs of the suburbs. Like you have LA, and then the suburbs of Los Angeles go out to an hour plus.
That threw me for a loop.
Yeah, but like the sprawl of the suburbs, it's expansive because there's so many people there. So whereas here, like in Vancouver, because of the geographical elements like the river and mountains and stuff, Portland can't really expand. Portland kind of sits in between two mountains because you have those West Hills before you get out to Beaverton and Hillsborough. Then you have east, you have the Cascades. There's only so much that the city can expand. And then there's a river to the north. So geographically, Portland could never become like LA or Southern California in the sense that there's those geographical elements.
Yeah. And then if you don't mind, I want to give a plug, because one of the resources that was a big factor going into our decision, quite frankly, was a book we read called Strategic Relocation. The author is Joel Skousen.
He has some videos on YouTube, right?
Joel Skousen, excuse me. Yeah, some videos on YouTube. You could just look up Strategic Relocation. And again,
we kind of followed the guide from the book in terms of deciding on an area that we liked.
Right, a lot of factors, again, that most people would never consider. But if you're thinking 3 steps ahead, worst case scenario, these are things that you should, may want to consider thinking about. So again, shout out to that book and those resources, and Joel for putting it together.
Yeah. So one of the cool things about Southwest Washington is that you have the city of Portland, and then the suburb, Vancouver, is directly over the river. and you have like further and further out suburbs, but even if you get out to Washougal or if you go out like past Battleground, like Yakult, Amboy, La Center, you're in super rural territory.
Right.
Whereas in California, to get somewhere rural, you have to be like 2 hours out of the city for the most part.
Yeah.
Whereas here you can be 30 to 40 minutes outside of the city and be rural. So everything's just a lot closer in. We're not, like, I know that my clients from Houston were saying that like everything in Houston is spread out. Like Texas is super spread out.
Yeah.
And we're just not spread out here, so most things are going to be closer in.
Right, and like you said, that was a really good point. Because of geography, it prevents or provides some interesting advantages to living here, some potential risks. But again, for us, where we were at, the reward outweighed any kind of risk. So let's talk about, are you done with that point?
Oh, so I was going to circle back to say that we considered Issaquah, we considered Ellensburg, because we would be on the west side of the Cascades, outside of Seattle, but we could still get to Seattle. We strongly considered Bellingham. We considered as rural as a place called Kettle Falls in eastern Washington.
Ooh, I remember that. And that was super appealing again, because like the population there, I mean, you're talking maybe the single or the teens of thousands of people, right? Very, very low amount of people.
Less than 10,000 people that lived there.
But it's just so rural. We still enjoy a certain measure of culture and variety and
good restaurants.
Good restaurants for this one here. It's stuff that you're not going to find, if you keep going, past a certain point, right? So again, but I think we wanted to do this video more so about kind of the decision to move up here and then here versus the logistics.
Yeah.
So let's talk about our visit, because that was big for us. So once we kind of narrowed down.
So we ultimately decided we wanted to be somewhere, and this was early on, we wanted to be somewhere between Goldendale, which we'd never been to, and somewhere in the Columbia River Gorge, like maybe between like White Salmon and Goldendale. And we specifically wanted to be on the Washington side from a tax standpoint and also from a strategic relocation standpoint, which Joel talks about in his book.
Right. So we decided to take a drive up and actually visit the areas we were looking at. Yeah, we actually we postponed our trip once because of the fires that had just started, which is called the Eagle Creek Fire in 2017. And we postponed it because it was just that bad. Smoky, roads were closed. It was rough. We came up, I believe, the next week or two, and it was still pretty bad, right?
Fire was still going.
Fire was going.
Highway or Interstate 84 was closed.
Yep.
So all of the traffic that normally goes out. So
that's crazy to think about that.
Yeah.
Everything's routed down
Highway
Washington 14, State Route 14.
Yeah, so all of the trucks that go on Interstate 84, which basically takes you out from Portland. That's the only way to get east out of Portland without going like all the way south through Washington.
Right.
I mean, through Oregon State.
So we came up at a time when, arguably Southwest Washington or the Columbia River Gorge was at its worst.
And we weren't even considering Vancouver and Southwest Washington at that point. We were solely looking in the gorge.
Yeah, we were actually, from a logistics standpoint, we were saying, okay, well, if we live in the gorge, we may take a drive into Portland maybe once a week or once every other week. Do you remember that?
And it would be like an hour, which was doable because in California, to get into LA was at least an hour.
Right. We had neighbors in
traffic.
SoCal who would literally drive an hour and a half every day, each way to work, right? So you're talking about 3 hours a day just in your car.
Yeah.
So again, that's something that would be rough for us to deal with, but taking that ride into Portland for inventory, for stocking up, for things like that was something that we were willing to deal with, to live out in the gorge. Hello, hello, hello. This is JB coming to you from Home Valley, Washington, also known as the world famous Columbia Gorge. And we're actually right across the street from the store, Home Valley store that is. You can see some fires burning up in the mountains across the Columbia River. That's actually Oregon, and we are on the Washington state side. And we're just exploring the area. This is, like I said, literally right across the street from the store. It's a public beach and park, so there's baseball fields, and there's a part you can go if you're windsurfing. This part is for swimming beach. And And this is actually the first time coming down to the river itself. And if you're not impressed with this, I don't know what to tell you.
How awesome is this?
Is this pretty amazing or what?
Absolutely amazing. Even with the fire, it's like, it looks like it's down. It's like real sand. Real sand.
That is real, all right.
And you can swim. It's probably cool, huh?
Go ahead and jump in.
I'm not gonna jump. Although it's not as cold as you would think. It's river water. Does that mean I can drink it because it's moving?
You can purify it with its fresh water. This is unbelievable, guys. This is going to be home.
And after having lived in Vancouver, an hour drive seems like, when's the last time we took an hour drive? Months.
Yeah. Not
We would take hour drives all the time in Southern California.
Oh, it was the regular.
Yeah, so it didn't seem like that big of a deal. And it's not that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things.
No, and we have some road trips and vacations and stuff planned that will be I guess the last time we drove to Bend, that was close to 3 hours.
Yeah, or if you go to Hood River, but we don't go to Hood River on a
No,
monthly basis.
no. But if I'm being honest, like some of the scenery here is so majestic that it kind of blurs the time for me anyway while I'm driving. But
so we were like, okay, we could be out there in the gorge, just outside of Stevenson, and I think that area had a population of, what'd they say, 500 people?
Was that it?
Yeah, I think that was it.
So let's put a pin in it right here. In the comments while you're watching this video, and we appreciate you watching it, but let us know, again, what are some of the factors that you're thinking about, or some of the things that are important to you,
or that are drawing you to Washington,
or that are drawing you to the northwest end of Washington potentially. Yeah.
So we came up here, smoky. The highway was closed. It was not an ideal time.
No, but and hopefully you can include the little, I didn't know you were recording me, because I had quite literally an emotional experience pulling up for the first time to look at this business we were considering buying. And the video, every time I watch it, I get goosebumps because even as smoky as it was, if there's a fire in the distance you can see on the other side of the Columbia and Oregon, but it was just one of those things that you'll never forget. So, and I remember even your reaction, because my wife is very stoic, again, very logical, very reasonable person. But your reaction was even more telling, just knowing you the way I know you.
That's on here too. What'd you think?
Look at that view right there. Wow. I just think, wow. I think everything happens for a reason. And I'm thinking, wow. My inner country boy is saying, well, golly.
Turn well, golly what?
Lane, then make a U-turn.
Well, golly what?
This sure is a pretty sight.
Yeah.
So again, we wanted to make this as relatable as possible to you if you're considering a move. I know you got a lot of things that you're thinking about, personal considerations, family considerations, future considerations, financial considerations. So we're just trying to give you some kind of insights into our brain and hearts when we were thinking about making this move. So we came up, we visited, we stayed here for almost a week, right? 4 days?
Yeah, and then we explored the area. So we took the drive. We wanted to see how the drive felt going from Stevenson area into Portland. So we did that one day. We went out the opposite way to the Dalles. And we did meet someone. So for those of you who maybe your spouse is like getting a job relocation, you're like, I don't know how I feel about living somewhere that's perception has it to be very gray and rainy all the time. It's not. Like even in the winter, we get plenty of sunny days. I don't know. I guess that's a personal opinion, but
going back to research. So again, one of the things that, this area has this huge misconception about rains, or like, you think you live in Brazil in the Amazon rainforest, but by the numbers, this area gets less rain than Atlanta, Georgia,
than Philly,
than Philadelphia, than most areas that you wouldn't consider rainy So again, just one of the things that we like to set the record straight on, because it could maybe cost you a great opportunity to live somewhere, like I said, pretty awesome. So that was the visit portion. We saw enough to know that we definitely, this area would be a great place for us to live. We went back home and we spent the next 6 months getting stuff together. And this was kind of another chapter, which was a little bit tough because, even though we knew we'd like to live here, we didn't know anyone. So zero friends, zero family. So we had the considerations of, okay, we don't know anyone there. So a lot of you guys may not move to somewhere where you don't know anyone, and that's a very understandable thing, because it's good to have that support system sometime. So I could totally relate to that. The other thing was trying to find a place to live remotely, even in the day of internet. It was so hard. Like, I wasn't prepared for how hard and frustrating it was.
Yeah.
So to give you an example, like we call, find something online, call, and the property management companies up here, respectfully, if you're in a property management company, don't take this the wrong way, but they leave a lot to be desired. So as a matter of fact, there's some great opportunities for people who want to, I guess, be a little bit more helpful to those moving from out of the area.
So then we started looking at Vancouver, because I was telling Jared, I'm like, hey, there's way more availability of housing in Vancouver. We can move to Vancouver, stay there for a little while, see if we like it, and ultimately move out.
Back out east towards the gorge.
Yeah, so that was our initial plan. So we were like, we'll just rent in Vancouver for a year plus, whatever, we'll fill it out until we find the property we want in the gorge. And then during that time, our plans changed, and our plans changed again. And
so your plans change again. We can totally relate, right? Yeah. We're all on a journey. But that trip was helpful. Even just being 3 or 4 days, it just cemented our decision. Or I guess it helped us make a decision.
Yeah. So then when we started looking at Vancouver, we did find that one place out in Orchards, and they wanted 3 years of tax returns. And we're like, we're just trying to rent the house. We're not trying to buy it.
You wouldn't need that to buy a house from a mortgage standpoint.
No.
So
that was frustrating, because that was it was like new construction. We really liked it. I was like sold on it. So I was really disappointed, because I was like, I just didn't want to. How do you explain? Like, it was off-putting, I guess.
Yeah, and we just had experience after experience of that over those 6 months of trying to find places, and it got tough. It was frustrating, and it got to the point. I guess I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but we got to speed this up. Okay. So it got to the point where we kept putting it off month after month because we weren't finding anything.
Yeah, we're like, okay, we'll make like January. We're gonna move, or we're gonna be there for the first of the year. It was December, I think. Okay, we're gonna be there for the first. Didn't happen. Couldn't find anything. Okay, we'll be there February 1st. Didn't happen. Okay, we'll be there March 1st. Didn't happen. And so we finally just were like, let's take a leap of faith. I don't know how we came up with this idea.
Well, we actually used, so my son, who was going on spring break, him coming out to stay, that was kind of like that was the deadline. So we said, you know what, let's just kind of take a leap of faith. Let's plan our move where we're packed up, we're leaving. And we bought him the airplane ticket, so we had to be in Portland because he was flying there. So we were still living in Southern California, and we were like, we're gonna buy the ticket. He's gonna fly into Portland, and we have to be there because we bought the ticket. And we gave ourselves 2 weeks. By the time we figured, by the time we got to Southwest Washington, we'd have 2 weeks to find a place, but we had no place. So again, going back to you, if you're in a journey and you want to move for whatever reason, you feel like your heart and your future is leading you somewhere else, but everything is not figured out, we can totally relate, trust me. Yeah, so I think it was like the end of February that we bought him that ticket. We were hoping to be up there by March, but we knew towards the end of February that the timing wasn't gonna work. And his spring break was like the last week in March / the beginning of April. So then we left like mid-March and we got an Airbnb. So am I jumping ahead now? No, you're doing good. Okay. So we decided we were going to pack up all our stuff, and we had already been selling stuff. So in terms of general logistics, I would say that you're probably looking at making a plan, which is what we did. Plan where you want to live, plan a time in general, pick a date, pack / get light. We had been doing that since we left.
since our trip in September, we had been selling things, getting rid of things we didn't want.
Right.
We're not minimalists either, but we don't necessarily like having a lot of unnecessary things. Random fact that the average American household has 300 items in it. 300,000
items.
300,000 items in it.
We have 300 items on this coffee table.
We're already getting light, so packing wasn't the hard part for us. But I would say, yeah, plan, pick a date, pack/get light, so we could make that happen.
But I want to go back, because for us, the mental decision of leaving home, right, our little nest, our place of comfort, uprooting it and moving across the country, it wasn't an easy decision, right? And it's not one we made lightly. And again, a lot of you are probably watching this at some point, whether it's this month or 6 months from now or 5 years from now. Again, we can totally relate. It's like your head and your heart is, and it's so funny. Like, I think about two centuries ago or decades past, and you had these settlers, and you had these people who were saying, you know what, we don't know where we're going or what we're going to find, but we know we need to go. And so that's something I have a lot of respect for. So if that's you, again, we can
way less access to resources, no internet. Can you imagine getting in the car and just, not even a car, but getting in the car and just driving with no internet?
What I'm saying, leaving home, leaving your nest and going.
Crazy.
So
we had budgeted, I don't know, a few $1,000s for the move. So you would want to look up like how you want to move, like do a DIY, or if you want to do professional, like personal move, like you're moving yourself, or professional, and budgeting everything. Yeah.
Be a good video, potentially good resource. Right. Like for us, I remember we were reselling and selling stuff to clear space, to raise some cash to move, because there's a lot of expenses in moving.
Yeah.
And I thought we did a pretty good job of that. So maybe just from we should, there's a lot of logistics to move, and one of the logistics, like you said, is getting light. So you can either just trash everything, you can take it to the Goodwill or donate it, or you can kind of do a combination of those two things in addition to selling it. And
what a lot of people do, which isn't necessarily the smartest thing, it's just moving everything that they have.
Yeah, but that wasn't an option for us. We would have needed a whole lot bigger moving trucks for that. So we purposely, wanted to kind of, like you said, get light. But that may be a fun video of just kind of some of the things that we did to get light, to clear out space.
Let us know in the comments if you want that video.
I was like, you guys do that too.
You guys, am I a YouTuber?
Yeah, you are.
No.
Put a little hat on YouTube.
I need a name badge.
Okay.
A YouTuber. I am a YouTuber. Probably a little risky, and I probably wouldn't recommend that to a client, but that is what we did, and it worked out. So yeah, we got here on Sunday, signed a lease on Wednesday.
I mean, it all happened really quickly once we were up here. So that was the main thing, was getting up here.
That was the biggest hurdle.
So again, if you're thinking about moving, and what we decided finally, right after we made our initial visit, was the timing is never going to be perfect. There's always going to be something. There's always going to be a roadblock or hitch or obstacle.
Or something you're going to miss, like
something you're going to miss. Yep. And for us, it was just a matter of taking that leap of faith, setting the wheels in motion, and getting up here. Once we got up here, everything, worked out.
Now I have a question for you. Is there anything that you would do differently about the way we handled our logistics or our move?
Anything I do differently? Nothing that comes to mind.
I probably would have just done it sooner.
Yeah, if anything, we would have done it sooner.
Because we could have done it, like once we came back September of 2017.
We could have immediately started.
Yeah, we could have been up here in October.
Yeah.
But it took us till March.
Right, the majority of people, don't take this the wrong way if you're one of these people, but the majority of people don't ever have the courage or the desire to uproot and to move and relocate themselves and their families. I forget the statistic, maybe you can look it up, but the great majority of people end up dying within a few miles of where they were born, in essence. We have a lot of respect and love for those of you who are thinking about a move and are willing to risk some uncertainties and some things like that.
And it literally is life-changing. Like, our life is totally different.
Yeah, it really is.
I mean, not obviously like our relationship, but if you think about living in another state is a totally different life than living in whatever state you're coming from.
One of the things I'm always, geek out about or fascinated by is that, we live in such a vast country here in North America. that each part of the country can almost be like its own country in a lot of ways. Like we recently traveled to Florida, and we joke about it, but Florida is like another world in some aspects. The Northeast and down south. It's not a small decision. It has been life changing, and for us, I mean, even going on 4 years now, we absolutely love the move.
Remember what we used to ask me like every other week when we first moved here?
Yeah. Hey, is there anything you don't like about this?
Anything?
Right.
And I would be like, no, there's nothing that I don't like.
And we're not trying to, obviously, if you move up here, you call Hal if you want really good treatment and a really good experience. It's funny, I asked you that though, because I'm like,
and that's like 100% legit. Like, I don't want people to think we're like sugarcoating it, but he really did. Like, it started out as like probably every week, and then it was like every other week, and then every other month, and it kind of became less and less sporadic. But he would check in with me and be like, is there anything you don't like about living here? And it's not to say that there aren't things to dislike. I'm sure some of you will hop down in the comments and share.
You didn't mention this. That's my old Sonny boy. But every area has something like that, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, coming from, living in different parts of the country, I can confirm that 100%. So, but overall, by and large, it has just been a great move. Even if your journey doesn't bring you here, that doesn't affect us, right, at all. But we can relate, and we just wanted to share our personal experience.
Yeah.
So
that being said, if you've already made the decision, if you're on your way here to Southwest Washington and you need any help buying, selling, or investing, please reach out. You can text me. You can check out my website. You can see current listings. And if you favorite homes on my site, I'll get a notice of what you're like and can kind of pay attention to the kind of house you're looking for, so that when we work together, it's even more smooth and I really understand what your needs are and exactly what you're looking for.
Right. And hopefully this video, albeit long-winded, maybe gave you some new things to think about, some new resources, and if I'm being honest, maybe some courage, right? Some courage to take that leap of faith and to try something new. I remember when I told my mom we were moving to the Northwest in Washington, she literally flat out like had a belly laugh.
Especially when we told her the kind of business we were looking at.
Right. But even, I mean, like this is, this is the final frontier for the United States, the Northwest, in a lot of ways. So she laughed. And if you have people who are maybe doubting or questioning your move,
or think you're crazy, why would you move somewhere that's rainy or this or that? Right. It's so overblown. Or I had a woman contact me, I'm sorry. And she was so concerned because her son is in the military, and he's coming. They're from South Carolina. He's stationed in Germany, and he has a school to do here in Portland for a year or two, I think, or I don't know how long the school is. But anyway, so she asked me for like advice, and she was like, "Oh yeah, I see on the news Portland's so dangerous and terrible, and that's why I want him to be in Vancouver." And I'm like, has he been here? Because it's really
right. And we did a video actually not too long ago about one of our random trips into Portland to kind of address some of the things you may see on the news, which are designed to be polarizing to get you to watch, right?
Clickbaity, yeah, definitely clickbaity. Like as a person who lives in Southwest Washington, when you go into Portland, you're not going to experience. I'm not saying that there aren't issues and challenges with the city of Portland. I'm just saying that the way that it's portrayed in the news and in media is completely different than how you'll experience as someone who's going to be a Washington resident. Going
back to it, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully it was something a little bit different than the logistical how-to. And we'll come out with more of those too. And you're really good at hacks and tips and ways to save money and do things smarter.
A lot of people are asking.
And a lot of people are asking. Maybe this gave you something to think about, gave you some courage to make this move, and hopefully it's something that could be as life-changing for you as it's been for us.
Yeah. So, with that being said, we'll catch you next time. Make sure to subscribe.
Here's to your freedom, fulfillment, and happiness.
Ciao.
Ciao.
I like your shirt a lot.
Thank you. I like your dress a lot.
Thank you.
You're
making me blush.
I have that effect on ladies.
Oh, you do on the ladies, huh?
I've been told that, yeah.
How many years has it been? You still can make me blush?
7-ish. 7 years.
We met 8 years ago, almost.
8 years. But I didn't start making you blush until 7 years, but I thought.
You made me blush the first time I met you, but anyway.
Anyway.
Okay. I don't think anyone cares.
No.
I'm just recording. Dun, 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 dun.
Oh, the realtor.
Yeah.
That's not my problem, bro. They're gonna walk away with enough money to go find somewhere to stay, right?
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
maybe not.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's not my problem.
Yeah, contract. We got cash.
It's we'll talk about it after.
Let's talk about it.